Hey,
What you doing?
I'm Brandon Horwin,
And I'm Sophie Williams.
and today's special guest is.
My name is Tracy Lynn Olivera. I am a professional actor and singer and stuff in mostly the DC area, and I am also a teacher. I teach at Catholic University, and I'm the director of performance programs for the Levine School of Music musical theater program.
So, just as a precursor to our audience who may not know you or may not be familiar with your work, can you tell us about your journey through music, musical theater, all that good stuff?
Um, well, I went to Catholic for voice, and I uh, knew I wanted to do musical theater though. By the time I graduated, did a lot of musicals and got a job in the DC area at one of the theaters at Signature Theater down here. Right before I graduated from college, so I stuck around because there was always work. I got my equity card when I was 21, and then just stayed around. I got a Broadway show when I was 30. I did the 2009 revival of Ragtime. Um, but I knew I wanted to stay here. I came back to DC after that. Like being there really solidified my reasons for being here. So it was cool. And I've just been now for like over 20 years acting in the area.
Awesome. So, with that, both you and your husband are theater professionals. So,
Yes.
how has your household been during this shutdown?
It is well, it's cool because we get to see each other, which is awesome. It's not something we got to do too much in the olden days, at least not like as a family all at once, not rushed. So the first few months of quarantine were kind of magical because we were just home all the time, and you got paid to basically do nothing. I mean, I was teaching a couple classes, but that was it for me. And Evan was unemployed, and here we are. I'm so sorry if you hear like little kids yelling in the background. My son's at PE in his bedroom. His PE teacher is really hot though, but I digress. Uh,
Nice.
yeah. So, but you know, we've had to jump through a lot of hoops. We've applied for grants, and we haven't got unemployment for a while, and it's just been, you know, thank God for Catholic U giving me a lot more students this year, and my other job making sure that I stayed reasonably gainfully employed.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, sort of in that same vein, you've managed to still perform a fair amount in a socially distant
Yeah,
fashion or virtually. One of them, most recently, was the socially distant concert with Vanessa Williams and Norm Lewis
yeah.
via PBS. So what was that experience like, and what were some of the others?
Well, the American Pops Orchestra is the organization I did that for. I don't know if you guys are familiar with them. They run a competition for students every year, but they've like, I don't mean this to sound like a commercial, but like they're an amazing company. Like they've increased their performers' pay. The CEO and Meister doesn't take a salary. Like they're like doing everything right, and like their regulations for COVID stuff are really high, and they've been really like the concerts have been super distant. I basically sang backup in a plexiglass box, um, and I did 3 concerts for them over the course of a few months, and one's going to air on PBS on New Year's Eve. Actually, there's another. That one's like a big one. That one's very fancy. Um, and then I did the one that aired this week, but you can watch all of them on the PBS app too. But this company, I've done other like private sort of driveway concerts for them, and some other stuff too. They do a lot of charity anyway, but they're great. And I also did I filmed a show. I think I'm allowed to talk about it. I think I'm pretty sure they've announced it. I filmed a Sondheim work for Signature that we did with a lot of like rigorous testing, and we filmed it over the course of 2 weeks at the theater live with like a 4-camera setup, and I'm also going to be filming a cabaret coming up. Yeah, so a lot of random exciting stuff in the works, and little like Zoom things. I did a birthday party.
Nice.
Like you do. But yeah, no, I've been like surprisingly horribly busy. Like there was a chunk of time where I was just pushing through until like the 15th of December pretty much. And now we're good. So,
Well, that's great to hear. Um, you are also considered a legend and staple of signature theater at this point. I mean, being featured in many of their shows over the past several seasons. So, and many of them iconic shows at that. So, which show was your favorite, and then at Signature Theater, and also which one did you find most challenging and why?
um I have so many favorites. I met my husband doing a show in their old garage called Allegro. That's how Evan and I met, and he was still a student, a Catholic at the time. We did not overlap a Catholic, so that should tell you something about our tiny age gap. Now it doesn't matter because we're old. So that's always been a favorite of mine. Uh, a Little Night Music is probably my favorite though that I've ever done. Charlotte's one of my favorite roles I've ever played in my whole life. And Sophie, you've played Charlotte, you know, haven't you?
I was
You were
Petra.
Petra.
I got a
That's
call
right.
back from Charlotte.
You'd be an excellent Charlotte. You'd be an excellent Petra too. I'm sorry I didn't get to see it. Yeah. So, but Charlotte was the most fun and sort of rewarding. Um, I've done a lot of sort of challenging things there. Like Night Music was Charlotte's hard. It's hard. It's hard to make her three-dimensional. But like Assassins was really challenging in some ways because Sarah Jane Moore has like long book scenes. And that show is in a lot of ways a play with music. And so
We saw
that
that
was
together.
challenging to do. What'd you say?
Yeah, that,
Brandon and I saw that one together.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's one of my favorite ones I've ever done too, because that was just like doing a play with my friends. Like I knew every single person in it. You know, it was just sort of like we showed up on the first day and we were like, hey, and then we did a play together. I mean, it was like high school. It was great. But I've done a lot of new works there that were challenging, and we did they did a rep season of new works, 2 new musicals in rep with each other. So we did 2 brand new musicals at the same time, which the rehearsal process for that was really interesting. But yeah, they're cool. One of the reasons I like them is because you feel like you're in high school working with all your friends, but you're also doing challenging, interesting stuff.
I was also going to ask, just because I watched the Titanic while, there's not a lot else to do.
That was
and
so
then
good.
I found like the 30-second like trailer and then the 1-minute like finale that they posted. And I have been really intrigued by Signature's production of the Titanic.
It was really good. It was really good. It went to Korea. The same, not us, because Korean, we don't speak Korean, but it went to Korea, and then it was going to be on Broadway. That production, not with me. It's good to be here. Like, I don't want to uproot my entire family, but yeah, no, it was going, but then it something with theater or I don't know something. It's not happening now, as far as I know. But yeah. But no, it was really good. That's one of the better things I've done too. The orchestra was enormous and it was really, really cool.
Cool. So you've already kind of touched on this, but you've been in a lot of filmed productions that Signature has done. So like the Signature Vinyl, and I think the Simply Sondheim is in the Washington Post. So I think.
Okay, so we're allowed. I thought we were allowed to talk about it.
Yeah, I hope you are, because it's.
Well, we are now.
On the internet.
Sorry, Matt.
So it says it's set to be released like on demand sometime in January. So just like looking at it, it seems to be the closest thing anyone can get to seeing sort of like a theater experience.
Yeah.
So being in that, rehearsal room with other people, with other artists, what was that experience like?
I cried the entire first day. Like literally went out for breaks with my friends who smoked, and they smoked and I cried. Like, it was just really overwhelming, like to be not just in a room singing with people you love, but to be in that room that has so much history for me and so many memories. And it was just it was a lot. It was a lot. Yeah, I'm getting kind of emo now. Yeah, but then I was fine, and I cried like all day, like on and off, and then I had a solid 20-minute sob in my car at the end of the day because it was just sort of like it was just overwhelming to be doing it at all. Um, and doing it there made it even more overwhelming and emotional.
Yeah, for sure. And that comes out, Sophie, you said in January.
Yeah, it's like a streaming on demand. You
Great.
keep it for 72 hours once you've started watching it, or like Amazon Prime. Basically.
Awesome. So
it was also
look
like
out for that.
Sorry to go back to it. It was also like weird because we rehearsed with masks on until we got into the theater where we had the cameras on. We had our masks on the entire time, so it was very bizarre. And then we got into like the scene work, and we still were spaced 6 feet apart and everything too. So we weren't doing. It was weird and great. I think it came out great. It was just like the whole process was so wild.
And are they scenes from specific shows combined?
So it's like a review, like putting it together, or it's the review that they commissioned years ago, like 10 years ago maybe. So yeah, that's the only reason it was allowed to be done, because like Sondheim is not allowing any of his stuff to be streamed pretty much. And so, but they allowed them to do that because they had created it themselves pretty much with him.
Wow. Great. So also in the same realm of signature, on the website, they still have Mamma Mia listed for this coming summer in June. Is there any updates on that?
Apparently, it's also on a billboard by the anthem. My therapist yesterday in therapy, and she didn't know I was in it or supposed to be in it. And she was like, yeah, I was down at the wharf. She's like, I went down to the wharf to get a cup of coffee because it was nice. She's like, I saw this big sign for Mamma Mia. So I guess some theater's hopefully trying to happen. And I was like, I'm supposed to be in that. So I guess there's a big billboard. So I think we're hopeful. But honestly, that's the first I had heard of it. So maybe actual ABBA's coming in to do it. But yeah, no, it would be amazing. It would be amazing. I think we're all not holding our breath, but it would be honestly like to get to like come back to live theater with Mamma Mia would be the most insane, dumb, fun summer camp thing you could possibly ever do. So if that, knock on wood, is to be a thing that happens, like I welcome that experience.
Yeah, that's a good deal. So where were you prior to the COVID shutdown, and what were you working on? And then also, we've talked about how you've been able to really adapt to the online format and like quite like amazingly at that. So where do you see the industry going from here? Do you see that they incorporate more virtual performances, or do you see like, a full return to live theater where, sort of everybody's like kind of done with Zoom and on demand at that point?
Well, for me personally, you said what's the last thing I did before COVID? I directed a production of The Toxic Avenger, the musical, for Rorschach Theater. Which was my first professional directing. Did you see it?
Yes.
Oh, awesome!
We saw it or no?
Yes, I think we did.
Yeah, it was my first professional directing job. So that I had directed for educational stuff, but never for someone that was paying me actual money to do it. Besides on top of whatever stipend I was getting. So that was cool. And to me, it was a really special production. The cast was magnificent and just good, down to earth, awesome, good to go people. And so the fact that that's the last thing I did before everything shut down, and I think it's like the last production in town that opened and closed when it was supposed to. My husband
Oh, that
was in
makes
a production of a play called The Amateurs at Olney that, interestingly enough, was about doing theater in a plague. It was the most timely piece. I saw it 1 week before the shutdown, and we were all like, "Oh my god!" And so he didn't get to finish the run, which was a real shame. It was a really good play, but Toxic Avenger, I'm pretty sure, was the last thing before the shutdown. Which, the cast and I still Zoom like once a month or so to have like cocktails or whatever. So it's like it's nice to see that they've become like besties too. And then as far as like the future of, I don't know. I hope I hope we get away from Zoom because it's terrible. Like, I mean, bless. I do think probably theaters will use video auditioning a lot more. Because it is, I think, probably really helpful, especially when you're seeing a lot of people. To see them in your house would be so much nicer. But it is different. Like, I don't like video auditioning. I don't like being on film. So this for me has been a lot. And the cabaret I'm about to film, that I was supposed to film it last week, but then there was a COVID situation, so we postponed till January. And I've been tailoring a lot of what I do for the camera instead of for a live audience, which, my shows are like, half comedy and half irreverent songs. And, there's a lot of comedy there, but there's a lot of comedy that only works for a crowd. And so tailoring it to feel more like the Colbert Show was a really big learning experience. And I'm glad we postponed because I'm still rewriting some stuff. So, I imagine though, like, theaters will probably have to ease back in, like with smaller casts, and no one's going to be doing Oklahoma in the near future because that's just too many people too close together on stage. I think once everybody's vaccinated, obviously we can do whatever we want. But I think also the theaters, theaters have been hurting for money, so I think they'll go back with small casts and stuff too, because it's what makes sense financially. So yeah.
cool. So, I mean, obviously, I should know, but you've taught at Catholic University for like 2 years now.
2 years this time.
2 years this time.
I taught there from 2006 to 2010 ish. Mm-hmm. And I left. I left in 2010, and then I came back last year.
Yeah.
So this is my second year back.
How has it been? Because you're a voice teacher, but you also teach like a bigger voice vocal technique class. How has it been moving these like educational voice classes online?
It's really interesting because I've taught some adult classes too for the theater lab and my high school kids. The high school stuff is the hardest, I think, because you're trying to do like, viewpoints and stuff. It's not, you can't do viewpoints virtually. Yeah. That would be amazing. But, trying to teach like a quote unquote real acting class is hard. The singing classes, in some ways, it's better because I can really look at you instead of sitting behind a piano and trying to half watch somebody. And so voice lessons in particular, like, I don't think, for me anyway, I don't think they've lost much by way of quality. Class has gotten, well, your class was really hard because your class had 22 people in it. Yeah. 22 people in a Zoom format is
like 1 million people
for everyone. It might as well be 1 million people. I couldn't even see you all at once. This year, we've made the class slightly more academic. There's a little more research involved. We're moving faster because there's only 8 people. it's definite, and we've put an emphasis on video stuff too, so it's kind of half pop class, half video audition workshop. And so it's just different. It's just different. I mean, obviously for a class like that, I would much rather be in person, but I think as far as like online musical theater classes go, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
You're getting something anyway. It's not, you know, a directing class is impossible, but a singing class is definitely doable, especially with the wide variety of karaoke tracks available on the internet right now. And we have an accompanist that's sort of on like retainer, and they send her their music and she sends them back a audio clip, and you know,
nice.
We get by.
That's great. And just jumping based off of that, you know, as an educator, both as an educator and an artist, what advice do you have for students and or young professionals that are trying to make it in this industry currently? And, you know, sort of what can you tell them in terms of keeping, you know, everything to keep going forward?
I have a lot of thoughts on this. I guess one is like, and this is the like the real talk one, is you have to know where your ability stands in terms of what you're competing against. You have to know what pile you're going into. Basically, if you're going to audition for signature theater, for example, you know, and you're a young character woman, who are the young character women they're employing right now? And does your ability get within 75% of theirs? So a lot of it is like you need to have a really strong ability to self-assess. And if you can't, that's a problem. You have to be able to take an honest look at what you do, not a self-deprecating, horrible look at what you do, but you have to be able to take an honest look and say like, okay, these are my strengths, these are my weaknesses, and I'm looking at Sherry Edelin and saying like, no, I can't do what she does, but the thing I do is just as good as that. And if you can't figure it out, get a couple people who can to help you figure it out, but make sure those people are really, really, really honest, even if it hurts. And my other big advice is like, and this is kind of counter to what a lot of people, you know, a lot of people do that BS, like, if you're passionate about anything else, you shouldn't do theater, or like if you can picture yourself doing something else, like don't do this for a living. And like fuck that. It's just like, sorry, I didn't mean to I said it sort of half, but like you I think if you don't have other passions, you'll burn out. You know, just like do the other things you want to do too. And have kids. And get married and have a life. Like you are not what you do. You know, the life you live is so much more important, and like life stuff should always be more important than work stuff. And I think that's an unpopular opinion. But, you know, as someone with a family who also has a double performer household, like you can make stuff work if you're good at what you do. And so, but I do think that without like passions for other things, like teaching and having a family and stuff like that, like I would have burned out a really long time ago. Like a really long. I burnt when I was 26. I took a year off and I worked at a law firm, and got out of debt because it was more money than I'd ever seen to be like a bottom of the rung legal secretary following attorneys around all day. And I made like a gajillion dollars, and that lasted about 10 months until I wanted to tear my hair out because I missed theater so much. And so, but it also taught me that like theater can't be the only thing in my life. Like I definitely need other stuff. So that's my big one, is like protect yourself from burnout. Yeah. But the big real one is like know exactly what you do and who you are. and be really assessment, like, can I compete in whatever market I'm trying to be in, and what do I need to do to be able to compete in whatever market I'm trying to be in.
All right, thank you for that. We're kind of at the point where we start to wind down and ask questions that, you know, we just want to hear the answers to because it's
All right.
for us. So if you haven't already listed it, what's your favorite show you've done and why? And also now's the point in time where you can just, we want to hear like your biggest flex. Like what's your biggest theater flex? Who have you met? What's the coolest story?
Oh God.
This is for
Okay.
us. This is for no one else.
Okay.
I mean, we're gonna publish it, but it's really for us.
Okay, so night music is one of my favorite things I've ever done. I did a production of 110 in the Shade at Ford's Theater the year before Night Music, I think, and that's probably my favorite thing. It's like tied. I think it's tied with Charlotte. That was just like, you know, I mean, it was like my dream role, and so being able to play my dream role like on a big stage, then they did it for me, which was really cool too. Like they came to me and said, like, what do you want to do? And I said this, and then they said, who do you want to direct it? And I said this person, and so it was just like that's a big flex for me too, to be like, yeah, a major regional theater came to me and said, we want to do a show for you. Like, so that's cool. That's cool. I also was a part of something called the Sondheim Festival that the Kennedy Center did in 2002. And they did 6 Sondheim shows in rep with all these like big Broadway stars, and I was in 3 of them. And like Steve was around constantly. Like he came to run-throughs, he came to tech, he would pull you aside during tech and coach you on random stuff and make you really nervous. And like this one time, and he would hang out at the bar with us, so we'd all, and it was like camp, like we'd go to the bar and like Stokes would be there and Christine Baranski and like Raul Esparza and like all these famous people, and we'd all just, and even if you didn't have a show that night, you just showed up at the bar because everyone lived near, all the stars were put up nearby, and so we'd all just go. We called it Camp Sondheim, and it's the coolest thing I've ever done by far. And like Stephen Sondheim would come to the bar and sit down at a random table with a bunch of random actors, and not always the star ones either. Like he'd just come. I was sitting at the bar with someone, and he like pulled up a stool and sat with us and just shot the shit for a while. And I was like, I can't deal with any of this right now. Like I don't know what I would. And I was like 24. I was a baby. I would have been out of college for like 2 years or 3 years. And so that was so that's like probably my biggest cool, like that was cooler than Broadway. Broadway was awesome, but the Sondheim Festival was like magical and will never happen again. Like that's something that is like a once in a lifetime situation. And then what was the other question? No, that was it. Yeah. Those are the questions.
Yeah.
Great. Okay.
All right. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. This is so fun
to hear everything and your awesome advice. You know, anything that we can promote here in this group?
Well, when Signature releases the Simply Sondheim thing, buy it. Watch the American Pops Orchestra New Year's Eve concert. Actually, they're really good. So, I mean, you'll see me behind a pole. Like you'll see a pole and you'll know I'm behind it. Behind Renee Fleming. You know what I mean? So like, and behind also like half an orchestra. So there's like Renee Fleming, pole, orchestra, plexiglass shield, me, but I'm there. And then once my cabaret happens, like buy it, because if it runs for longer than 6 weeks, I make extra money. So yeah, but I don't know. And I think other than that, like just keep praying for all the actors to come back and to get through all of this with minimal bruising from losing our health insurance and stuff like that. So, and when live theater comes back, support the crap out of it so we all can work. But yeah.
And
I think that's it. Mhm.
just one more follow-up question to something you mentioned that I think is really important for our audience, especially the students that listen, is you went and made your Broadway debut in the revival of Ragtime in New York, and you realized that New York and everything at that moment wasn't right for you and your other, like you were talking about earlier, and your other hobbies in life. And so you decided to come back to DC and,
Mhm.
pursue the rest of your career there. What was that moment that you learned and kind of realized that that was what you needed to do?
I remember that like when Ragtime, when they came to us and said we're closing, they brought everyone together. They brought everyone together on the stage, and then the producer was like, "Oh yeah, we're closing in 2 weeks," and we were all like, "All right." And I watched all the people in the ensemble, especially, just scramble and get so panicked and start going to auditions and like not telling each other what auditions, like keeping it a secret and all this stuff. And I was like, I just want to go home. Like I just want to go back to my house and my dog, and like I just that's that's where it is for me. And during COVID, I realized that, like, you know, Broadway is not the top of the world. It's really cool and great. And if that's your dream, you go for it. And it was special, another once in a lifetime thing. But I realized during COVID, actually, that one of the reasons I was getting so overwhelmed being back at Signature was that we all started doing this because we did a show in high school and we had such a good time and it was magical, and you never wanted to do anything else after you did like your first play or your first musical, if you're like us. And so I realized that, like, I've spent most of my career doing that and like feeling that way, like being with most of the people that I love and respect, and all my colleagues are my friends, and every 3 or 4 months I get to go see my friends and put on a freaking play, and it's a blast. And like that, I think, is like the ultimate dream for me, was like having that feeling. And like being on Broadway where you get a standing ovation every night is awesome. I am not like in no way am I knocking that. It's great. It's a good feeling to come out of a stage door and have people want your autograph even though you had 3 lines. Like, that's cool. But to me, it's cooler to like go and like Assassins was like my husband, my best friend Rachel Zampelli, Bobby Smith is the godfather of my child, and 10 other people who I've known for years who I have a great rapport with and a great time, and who afterwards, like, none of us ever wanted to go home. We all would just like shoot the crap in the dressing rooms, and it was just it's that's the dream to me from age 14 on. So yeah, so that's why not New York. Also, like, I can have a house here for the same price as a postage stamp size apartment in New York City, and like a car and space. And that's just logistical reason to not be there. Like, I don't want to be 42 with a roommate on top of everyone I live with. So yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Absolutely. That's excellent. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today on
Thank
Whatcha
you.
Doin. We learned a lot about what Tracy's doing, and we're so thrilled. So, yeah, check out all of her work on Signature Theater of Arlington, Virginia, and the American Pops 2 concerts on PBS app or website. And stay tuned for all in-person, hopefully all in-person performances coming up in the summer and fall.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope you both are well too. I hope you have a great second semester and a great break, a long break. So that would be good.
Yes, it's very long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're all excited about it.